Now I will tell you how a schoolboy became a millionaire and immediately got himself an adult girlfriend. Enjoy watching! A prisoner escapes from prison and finds a hidden suitcase with $1 million. Meanwhile, 11-year-old Preston complains to Fish that his older brothers use his room as a warehouse. In addition, they stole his savings, which were kept in the bank. All this happens with the knowledge of his father, who believes that the brothers earn money and therefore can store their junk with the younger one. The father takes Preston to a classmate's birthday party at an amusement park and gives him only $2 so that his son will not lack entertainment. The prankster Butch makes fun of Preston while the other children buy themselves a lot of tokens. Preston only has enough money for 6 tokens, and a ride on a roller coaster requires 7. He can only envy the other children and ride the rides for the little ones. The kids laugh at their poor classmate. When asked, "Are we broke?" the parents answer that they're just controlling their spending. The brothers go to a baseball game with pockets full of money, and Preston dreams of money for his birthday. His mother hands him a letter from his grandmother, but it turns out to be not cash, but a check with no amount indicated. Preston remembers that last year his grandmother sent him $1,000, and his father laughs that he took inflation into account and added only $11. Preston decides that if he puts this money in the bank, he will earn 1,342,000 years. Meanwhile, the escaped prisoner got dressed up and went to the bank to see his former accomplice, who turned him in court. Stolen money is easy to track by serial numbers, so Quigley wants new bills. Tomorrow, his man nicknamed Juzz will come with a check for $1 million, and Biderman will have to give him this amount in cash. Preston, who has his eye on employee Shay Stanley, comes to the same bank. He brought his $11 to open an account, but the minimum amount for this is $200, and he has to leave. At this moment, Biderman hands Quigley temporary checks. Butch snatches the gift check from Preston and runs away. Preston falls and his bike gets under the wheels of Quigley's car. The criminal tries to drive away, but because of Butch's screams, a crowd gathers around and he decides to pay off the victim. Then, a police car appears. Quigley hands Preston a signed check and runs away. Preston's parents punish him for the bike and put him under house arrest. He would like to have his own house and live by his own rules. He notices that the check is not filled out and adds his details. At first, he wants to write $200, then $1,000, but in the end, he decides not to hold back and types $1 million on the computer. The next morning, Preston returns to the bank to cash the check, but the employee only laughs at him and takes him to Biderman's boss. The man looks at the signature and asks the employee to return to the hall. Just asks who Biderman is. Preston replies that he does not work for Quigley. He just bullied him. Biderman laughs and burns the check, then opens the safe and counts out exactly. The real Just comes to the bank with a check for $1 million. Preston's backpack is filled with bills. As he leaves, he bumps into Just, who holds the backpack with the money for a moment. Preston runs out of the bank, and Biderman assures Just that everything is under control. The bandit does not understand what Biderman is talking about and threatens him, and only then does he realize his mistake. The first thing Preston does is to buy a house that looks like the castle he dreamed of. He uses a speech synthesizer to talk to the realtor. As a result, he begins to bargain for the house with Quigley, outbidding him and offering twice as much. Looking at the Apple computer, he comes up with a new name for himself, Macintosh. Having bought the house, Preston arranges a money shower. Quigley and his partner put pressure on Biderman, and during the showdown, he remembers how he signed a check for a boy with a bicycle. Preston escapes from home, calls a limo, and decides to go shopping. He buys a TV, a stereo system, a massage chair, and a bunch of toys. The driver, Henry, becomes his good partner in mischief. For his company, he gets an expensive watch, and Preston treats himself to a bucket of ice cream. Preston hits on Shay when she's out for a run and offers her a ride in his boss, Macintosh's car. His childish maximalism results in ordering dozens of boxes of cookies and soda packs. Trucks with toys block his father's way, and he is surprised to see his son on the roof of the house. Preston explains that he works for a certain Mr. Macintosh, and if his father does not know him, then the rich man knows everything about him. One word from Preston clears the way. Preston turns his yard into an amusement park, and Henry, for a good fee, keeps him company in games. The cash given to him by Biderman was marked, and a certain Macintosh paid with it. The bandits look for Preston at the water park, and Butch tries to get into his house. Preston orders him to be thrown out. He does not need a water park, he has his own. Shay comes to visit, wanting to meet Mr. Macintosh. She inspects Preston's workplace and offers to open an account for him right now, having taken a few photos. Preston flies into the pool and hands the girl $200. Perhaps Mr. Macintosh would like to open a bank account. He's a businessman and always busy, the boy replies. But Preston is always free for her, and will send a car for her today. Preston asks Henry to prepare him for a date, and he tells him everything he knows about women. Beautiful flowers, a strong body, a good haircut, expensive clothes, a car, and a few insignificant words. Preston is still under house arrest, and his father is not going to let him out. But, according to the boy, the rich Macintosh is interested in his project, and today, he was supposed to bring it to the businessman. Having received his parents' consent, Preston adjusts his budget and goes on a date. He barely has the strength to move the chair Shay is sitting on. The agent asks him about Mr. Macintosh. Preston supposedly gives her jewelry from him, but she refuses. It is too expensive. She wants to know what exactly Macintosh does. Preston has prepared a few questions, such as whether Shay is married and how tall her shortest boyfriend was. He rocks on the chair and turns over the tablecloth. After that, he and Shay go to eat hamburgers. Preston takes Shay to the area with a fountain, and the jets start to spurt. At this moment, the couple is noticed by criminals and chased. Preston manages to escape in a limo. Shay thanks him for the evening, and he invites her to a party in honor of Mr. Macintosh's birthday. The boy was very reluctant to let the lady go, but now he had to think about the party in honor of his birthday. The parents wondered why they had never seen the mysterious rich man, even though his older sons were already working for him. Preston hired Yvonne, a party planner. The businesswoman reached into her backpack and wrote down $1,000 as a deposit. Henry had to leave, and now Preston had no one to play with because he had no other friends. The boy with the money went to the park and looked enviously at the children playing. He was found again by the criminal trio and they chased him, riding right through the park. Quigley almost reached Preston, but the car got stuck. Preston fell off his bike, dropping his backpack. Just tried to grab it, but missed. The chase continued. A guy found the backpack, but Preston immediately returned it to himself. Leaving the stranger only a wad of money, it ended in disaster for the criminals. Yvonne had hired a lot of people to decorate the house, and it looked like the party would cost Preston a pretty penny. Butch was hoping for a bribe, but Quigley dangled him from the roof of the building, and Red immediately spilled everything he knew about Preston. Shay hoped that today she would finally meet Mr. Macintosh. The brothers hinted to the younger one that she might be a gold digger, since she always mentioned Macintosh when they met, in order to get his fortune. Yvonne announced the party in the newspaper, and many guests came. Henry remembered the expression, "a fool and his gold." No matter how much money you give a fool, soon he will have nothing left. There was a mountain of gifts on the table, but Preston was driven away from them. It was all for Mr. Macintosh. Preston looked everywhere for Shay while she discussed her actions with the other agents. The tables were covered in all sorts of junk, and there was not even ice cream. Yvonne gave Preston the bill, and he was stunned to learn that the party had cost him $100,000. Preston checked his balance and realized that he could not pay. He had only $332 left, and all his money was gone. Suddenly, Preston's father entered the office and asked Macintosh to send his son home early. "He has been working too much lately. Money has become too important to him. And it is my fault," said the father. He was too demanding and deprived his son of a childhood. "I want to go home," the boy said, but his dad had already left. Preston tried to find Henry, but he had left the party. After all, he was only a friend for money. Shay entered the office. She was looking for Macintosh again. Hearing this, Preston chased her away and ran away. The thugs broke into Preston's house, but it was empty. Butch directed them to Macintosh's house. Yvonne demanded her money and ended the party. Preston took the microphone and asked all the guests to leave. The guests grabbed their gifts, and some took the food. The boy was left alone in the big house. There was a knock on the door. Preston hoped that it was Henry returning, but the thugs burst into the house and demanded to know where Macintosh was. They were the first to know that Macintosh did not exist. They also learned that Preston had spent $1 million in just 6 days. Taking advantage of the criminals' confusion, Preston escaped through the ventilation. Juice was thrown after him, and the plump biterman pounced on the cakes. Juice was trapped and shot with baseballs. Preston hid between the tables. Quigley turned them over and peered into the darkness, but found himself trapped inside a metal ball. Preston rolled him into his go-kart and eventually threw him into the pool. The boy was afraid that he had drowned the villain, but he himself had fallen into a trap. However, FBI agents came to Preston's aid. They were curious about who this Macintosh was. "I'm Macintosh," Quigley said and asked him to get off his territory. He was immediately arrested for money laundering and fraud, and his accomplices were also detained. The kid asked Shay to show him her badge and was upset to learn that their date was just part of her job. Preston's dad came to pick him up, and Henry was waiting outside, who had actually gone out to buy a bucket of ice cream for his friend, which was sorely missing from the party. Preston's family was waiting at home with a cake and asked him to make a wish. He looked at the photo and wished for Shay.